What's happening, people, and welcome back to Platform B. This is Cubs Clubhouse, and we are jumping into a very exciting interview section today. Today we are joined by an artist that I've got a lot of time for. His new single is absolutely tearing it up. The new album is doing fantastic bits as well. James BKS joins us on the line. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you for having me.
Each and every time, man. It's my absolute pleasure to get you on the line. Obviously, I'm very excited to talk to you. The new single is going crazy off the new album, of course. What I wanted to do, though, the year is coming to a close. I wanted to use this as, I suppose, an opportunity just for you, I suppose, to kind of summarize your year, how it's been. I know you've been sort of in back-to-back album years. It looks like you've been busy. How's 2023 been for you?
It's been great, man. I've been blessed because, to me, it was like transitioning from volume 1 to volume 2, me getting out of the shadow, basically, being starting from a producer and being able to express myself more as an artist. It's a beautiful thing, it's me being blessed to work with wonderful artists like Carlos Santana, like Force 59, like Angelique Kidjo, and a lot more artists in the album. And it's me expressing myself and telling my story.
Awesome. No, and I can completely understand that transition, I suppose, of going from a more sort of production-based kind of force into being a much more sort of, I suppose, 360 kind of artist in that sort of sense, like covering all different bounds. How have you found that, I suppose, from a creative point of view? Have you been finding there's little like hurdles you have to get over, or have you kind of felt yourself adapting to it really, really easily?
I really tried to craft my sound, and it took me a lot of years, a lot of months to be able to do that, and I was searching that particular sound that no one could have, so I had to plunge and to go deep into my DNA and to who I am in order to do that. So it took time, and it was truly a process because back then I used to produce for a lot of artists around me, whether it was in the US, France, the UK, and I had like the imposter complex. I didn't know if being able to actually perform myself, rap and sing in my own song would be possible. And at one point, you realize that nobody could like portray or tell your story better than yourself. So I had to do it, I had to get out of my comfort zone, and that's what I did.
100%. And I suppose, I always hear this about producers that sort of transition across into more of a, as I say, that sort of 360 artist where you're doing kind of everything. I feel there's a lot of producers that kind of come out and say, sort of along the lines of they stop hearing other people on their instrumentals now. They only hear themselves rather than hearing other people when they're putting stuff together. Has that happened to you?
Yes. Sometimes, I've been blessed to work with wonderful artists, but at one point, when you have something to say, you have a message, sometimes they cannot be able to do it for you, And I've been a fan of like the Timbaland, the Pharrell Williams, the Just Blaze, and they all add their own sound, but it's not all the artists that will be able to actually understand where you're trying to go with your music, Sometimes you may be ahead of time, sometimes you may not be doing the same thing as everybody, and that could be scary as well. So I had to be like, okay, I'm just going to do it for me, and then people are gonna like find out who I am and what kind of sound I do, and they're gonna, if they want to work with me, they're gonna be able to see why they want to work with me. They're gonna reach for that specific kind of sound that I'm doing.
100%. No, and it's such an interesting journey to kind of watch people go through, and I think off the back of that, the kind of cool thing for this, obviously, in this sort of space now between kind of 2 albums you've released, how much have you kind of learnt across that 2-album process? Because obviously the first album is always when you're trying something a bit different. The second one, how much did you change the approach? How much did you refine certain elements?
I think from what's really like the transition was me being able to actually rap and sing on the song, and that was the missing piece for actually the audience, the people, to actually understand what I was trying to do. Like the volume 1 sounded more like a compilation of records, and I was still searching for my own sound, so I was trying a lot of things. With volume 2, I kind of knew where I was going. The sound sounded more like clearer, and my voice was the missing piece. So I think that was a nice evolution to where I'm going now.
No, 100%, and what a nice kind of gift to find. Like the missing piece was yours all along. What a nice kind of position to be in that sort of regard. And I think, obviously, looking through the second volume more specifically, because I really want to deep dive into this this second project, because there's such an awesome track listing on there, such a wide sort of ranging list of kind of feature vocalists as well. Obviously, again, with that sort of production background, how did you, I suppose, pick and choose who you wanted to feature on the project? Were there tracks already lying there, collaborations you'd already spoken about, or was it a start to kind of finish process of, I want this person for this person for this person for this?
You know, when you reach out to artists like Carlos Santana, like Yemi Alade, like Royce 5'9", all of them artists they've done already so many things, you know. So if you're trying to reach this kind of artists, you got to make sure that the sound is fresh enough for them to be actually music. I studied their music so much that I knew that the type of music that I would do and the instrumental that I would put out for them would connect, you know. And that's basically what happened throughout the whole process. You know, I was like, okay, I have this particular record, this particular instrumental. I knew what I wanted to say, and I knew that this particular artist would fit perfectly. So I studied them a lot, and yeah, thankfully we made it happen.
Awesome. Well, now this is a question I love answering and I love asking people. You don't have to give any specific names, but was there anyone that you kind of wanted to feature that you weren't able to get over the line, or was this as an album your kind of finished piece? Did everything to come together the way you wanted it to?
You know what? It came together perfectly. To be honest, on volume 1, I was trying to get will.i.am on my record for so many years, and I managed to do it eventually. But it took time, because I guess you got to be patient with your pace and where you're trying to go, you know. And eventually, I knew that I had the right instrumental. I knew that my sound was already buzzing a little bit, and it was the right time to reach out to him. So sometimes you may end up not working with the artist that you want in the time that you want, but you just got to be patient. And if you really add it, if you really want it, eventually it's gonna come, you know. And that's what happened with me.
Yeah, man, and that's a cool cool thing to be able to say, though, as well, to kind of go through that process. I tried, and eventually we got there. Like, I love that as a kind of backstory. And I think as well, looking through this album, as I mentioned, there's some really cool collaborations on there, and there's some really cool standalone bits as well. Another question I love asking people, because there's always one track on an album that may not necessarily have that sort of, I suppose, public kind of shine as much as other tracks on the album. It might not be one of the lead singles that gets kind of pushed as much. What's your favourite track off the album? Your personal favourite, the one that you look at and go, that's the one I want to show people.
Wow, there's actually two. The first one, the intro of my album, is called Identity. And I produced that record with Rock Bailey, who's a wonderful music producer. He's on the new PDD album. He did records for Travis Scott, Kanye West. He's a big producer and a friend of mine, actually. And when we crafted that record, I also co-wrote that record with an artist, a rapper named Brahms, who's a friend of mine. And to me, it sums up the album. We're talking about identity, you know, and it took me a lot of years to actually figure out who I am as a producer, but as a human as well, you know. And I've been fortunate to actually craft this record between 3 continents. You know, Europe, because I'm from France, I was born in France. The US, I lived in the US for 10 years. That's where I started producing. And Africa, where I actually went back to my roots and gave kind of like the missing substance to my music to make sense, you know? And that record sums up everything that I wanted to do, and the message that I'm trying to spread out.
Awesome. And
the other record is called Kila Jumbo. And it's actually more of like an instrumental, because I don't rap on it, but there is like a bit like a choir on the hook, And I love that record because it's truly like a trip. If you listen to it, you got influences from South Africa, from Lebanon, and it's truly like a trip, and that defines me as well.
Amazing, man. And again, I always love doing these conversations because you get to hear the voice behind the sound. And I love getting to hear how people talk about their own production, how people talk about how they feel about their own music, because that's the key to a lot of people, and that's always the key for me to kind of hear that kind of emotion. It's awesome. There is another track I do want to talk about, which is obviously the big video at the moment, which is doing incredibly well numbers wise. It's picking up a lot of steam. Nobody Above the Game. Talk me through the approach to this one video wise, and also why is this a track you've kind of decided to lead the sort of post campaign with? Why is this the one you're currently pushing?
So that record is special because I really wanted to talk about relationships, but in a different kind of way, because usually when you talk about like a couple, right, there's usually like someone cheating, either like the man or the female or whatever. And I wanted to talk about relationship in a more mature way, and saying that you could be in a long-term relationship, 10 to 15 years to 20 years with someone, and sometimes with time you realize that maybe you give too much of yourself for that for your significant, right? And maybe you want to be able to grow as a human and to try to do things on your own, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to love the person next to you. And for the other person, is he or is she going to be able to understand that you got to let the other person grow as well, And I would say that nobody above the game. It's really nobody's above love. If you truly love someone, you're going to be able to understand that person. You're going to be able to understand that we all need room to grow as humans. And you may have done a lot for the other person, and sometimes you just want to have some time for yourself too,
100%.
Yeah, that's the record.
It's an awesome message as well, and I think there's as you said, there is a real kind of maturity to that in the approach. It's not necessarily a negative that you kind of want to grow as a person. That's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's an awesome message. And I think kind of moving off the back of that, how do you feel off the success of this as a video release? Because it definitely seems like this one is really taking off.
Yeah, I'm so happy because I've been able to work with so many artists, right? But that was one of the first records that I actually did from beginning to end. I sing on it all the way through. And I had to get out of my comfort zone in order to do that, And I love how it came out. I love the mix. I love the fusion of the music as well. You can tell that there is a influence of Afrobeat, but not too much. So it doesn't sound like everything else. So I'm truly proud of how it came out, And the message is truly deep, because sometimes you don't have to cheat. You may not cheat, but sometimes you have to have your own, space in order to grow. The other person needs to understand that, And are you going to be able to still love each other? Are you able to put your ego away and understand what that person go through? And I wanted to talk about that, and I'm so happy that the message got spread out like that.
No, 100%, and I think there's going to be a lot of people that very instantaneously gravitate towards that and that message that you're putting forward. I tell you what, James, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show this evening. It's been great to kind of hear you talk through what you've been kind of going through musically and the sort of stories that are behind the songs. I just wanted to kind of finish up by saying you're in back-to-back kind of album years. What's happening for the rest of this year? Are we going to get a hat trick of albums over the course of 3 years, or is next year something a little bit different?
I'm going to focus on touring, actually. We're putting together the tour as we speak, so I cannot wait to actually go and perform towards my audience. It's such a beautiful feeling to be able to do that, with my band. that like you live music differently that way. So I cannot wait to do that.
Amazing. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, man. Thank you so much for stopping by. As always, guys, make sure you are going and checking out the brand new album, and of course checking out the brand new single as well. James BKS, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, man. Thanks again.
Each and every time. Keep it locked and don't go anywhere, people. We're live on Platform B. This is Cubcam TV in the building, moving into the sounds of the pull-up next. Keep it locked. Don't go anywhere. Bye-bye.
Sounding so good right now. But they're sounding a bright and town.
Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel right now, Cubcam TV. Stay locked.